We move on to the economy now with a question from Shelley Rabando.
Graffiti, vandalism, and neglected public spaces affect both perception and economic vitality. What is your approach to maintaining clean, safe neighborhoods, especially in the business corridors?
Mr. Keller, you go first.
Well, this is what we've been working on so hard to revitalize our city because we're 40 years behind on this. But you see the resurgence all around you. We've been investing in Windrock. That has now been transformed and is an amazing place with one of the coolest parks in the city. We're adding amazing destination parks where families can be safe, like Wells Park and Phil Chacon Park in the International District. But we're also making sure that we build economic hubs all over the city. An example of that is 7th and Central. It is undeniably awesome and it's undeniably Albuquerque, and it was a curated plan that we want to use as a proof point to do in other places. We see the C&M Film Academy coming into the rail yards this fall. That is going to happen, and that's going to bring hundreds of students down to downtown every day. We're working with UNM to try and move them downtown as well to help the downtown core. And we're giving downtown its own control so that it can actually have its own rules and event schedule and its own tax revenue. So it's known as the Tax Increment District and the Business Development District. But we want to do this in other parts of the city too. That's why you see us working to make sure everything we can accommodate, like
Time is up,
Alley
Mr. Keller.
and Green Jeans, are all over our city.
Mr. White, you go next.
Thank you. Shelley, you're right. The business corridor is important because that's the welcome mat to your city. When people are coming in from around the country, from around the world, to explore whether they want to set up shop in Albuquerque, the business corridor is going to be one of the first places that they visit. Can you imagine? Think about what Central Avenue looks like right now every single day with homeless people who almost look like zombies, who are you doing open air fentanyl, some doing other things that are just unspeakable. It's disgusting and it needs to change. Mayor Keller said something interesting. He said that downtown, he wants them to be able to make their own rules and do their own enforcement. It seems to me like when the mayor keeps saying something, when he talks about technology and civilians, it's like he's giving up. He's like he's saying, look, we've tried, I can't do it. I'm putting the ball in your court now. Economic development is critically important. Let me also say, if we don't get
Time is
a
up,
handle,
Mr. White.
I'm sorry,
Time is
thank
up.
you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like a 30-second rebuttal?
I would. You know, the challenge around downtown, I think this is a good one where at least those of us who were born and raised here, downtown has been a challenge for decades. And part of the problem is that we look to mayors and politicians to fix it. I do think that's part of the problem. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying with our tax increment district, they get their own money and then they can decide what to do with it. The actual community, giving power to the community, I think, is leadership. That is something that I've listened and heard about for decades, and it's something no politician has ever been willing to do.
Time is up. Mr. Sanchez, you are next.
Thank you. When we get right down to it, it's leadership, crime's out of control, and the public does not trust the leadership. What we need to do is we need to change that. Put a new leader in there, and that's the bottom line. Did you know that there is no Fortune 500 company headquarters in Albuquerque? Did you know that we in Albuquerque are 5% over the poverty level on a national average? Those things are not good for our city. That puts us on the bottom of any kind of good list, and we need to make sure that we're changing that. Kirtland's the only game in town when it comes to large business, large corporation, and we need to change that. I will hire the best economic development director in the country to make sure that we have the business solutions that we need here in Albuquerque. We also need to make sure that we preserve and prioritize our small businesses so that we don't lose any and no one else closes their doors. Those are my priorities.
Time is up. Thank you. Mr. Rubias, you have the final reply.
We need to invest in city services that keep our streets clean. So solid waste is not sweeping encampments, but instead sanitizing and cleaning our central corridor. We need to invest in our small businesses, both through incentives and through building the environment around them. This looks like you taking advantage of the zoning changes that we've made to build in density, especially downtown and also along our transit corridors, so folks can live and walk and work all in the same area. This is how you revitalize a space. This is how you bring people to go and patronize our small businesses. This is how you build an environment that people want to live in, to walk in, to work in, and will love as the heart of our city.
Staying on that topic, our next question comes from Dan Boyd. Dan.
Local businesses are the backbone of Albuquerque's economy. What policies would you champion to support small business growth, attract new investment, and ensure economic development benefits all parts of the city.
Mr. White, you go first.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's an important question. 2/3 of all jobs in Albuquerque are created by small businesses. You know, it's important, as I said, that we do welcome in businesses from around the country and around the world. But we have to partner with our small businesses because they are the backbone of our economy. They are what drives our economy. One of the things that we've heard on the campaign trail time and time again is it takes too long to get plans done through the zoning department. We've been told that there's times where it could take a year, sometimes 18 months, to get those plans back. And as a small business owner, I can tell you, if you have to wait 18 months to get your plans back, you're wasting money, you're losing money. You'll take your business elsewhere. And so I have proposed that we privatize that planning department and the zoning department so that we can get those plans through quicker, we can make ourselves friendly. Most importantly, I'll be a partner with small business,
Time
not
is up.
an adversary.
Mr. White. Mr. Sanchez, you are next.
Thank you. Small business is the backbone of our economy. It puts people to work. It puts high schoolers to work. It puts middle-aged adults to work. It puts people that need a job to work. Small businesses are everywhere. Albuquerque has over 40,000 small businesses, and we need to make sure that we're prioritizing those small businesses so that they don't close their doors. If a small business is in trouble, we need to make sure that we act. If there's issues that we can do to help, if there's things we can do to help that small business, we need to do it. With my administration, I will make sure that I use the city's bonding power credit rating to incentivize small businesses that can come in so that they can have immediate money for startup. If they want to scale their business or open another location, then we can help them. A small business concierge service will make sure that we are adequately protecting and preserving our small business.
Thank you. Mr. Ubayas, you are next.
In supporting our small businesses, we build the future of this city. So we first need to start with our youth in training and skills and support for entrepreneurship so that when they get out of high school, they can pursue their dreams. But it also means making it easier for small businesses to build, to start up, and to sustain and thrive here. That means not making small businesses have to be an expert in government bureaucracy just to start up their dreams. What we should instead be doing is have a customer service mentality so that when somebody comes to us with their proposal, we are getting them to yes as quickly as possible because that time lost is money lost. And finally, looking at how we can use incentives, right? Instead of giving them to our largest developers, we should be giving them to our smallest businesses in their first and infant days. That way they can grow and build the businesses that will drive our economy.
Thank you. And our final reply comes from Mr. Keller.
Well, I think you heard good ideas. What's missing is how to actually do them, and that's what we want to do. Workforce development is about partnering with APS. That's why we're part of the Career Academy to actually get trades back in the schools. We also know that it means investing in small businesses, but how? Well, we're offering all of our incentives to small businesses if they agree to hire 10 more people. That's connecting the workforce challenge to the incentive challenge. But you also have to look at big employers. That's why I supported Pacific Fusion. That's why I support investing in the future of America and Albuquerque. That even has to do with esoteric things like quantum computing. And so for me, it's about growing the employer base, it's about growing the workforce base, and it's about supporting small businesses. And that's actually how you do it, not just what you're supposed to do.
All right, thank you. Our next question comes from Bob Clark. Bob, go ahead, please.
As we know, there have been multiple businesses that have pulled out of the area around Central Avenue, widely known as the War Zone, the International District. In some cases, this has led to so-called food and pharmacy deserts. What will you do, if anything, to bring those crucial businesses back to the people who live in those areas?
Mr. Sanchez, you go first.
Thank you. I own an insurance company, and one of my customers was working in the Walmart that closed. One of the things that nobody really knows about, because Walmart's not gonna publicize it, but what she told me is that Walmart was losing over $7.5 million per year. $7.5 million per year. If you divide that down, that's over close to $400,000 a month that was walking out that door. Again, I go back to that same thing. Leaderships, crimes out of control, and there is no public trust. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the crime is under control, that we bring back public trust, and we make sure that we bring back economic prosperity to Albuquerque. I will make sure in my administration to look at those things and make sure that we bring and talk to those people before they walk away to make sure that we are taking care of them. Currently, right now, I have business owners, large companies on the west side who have come to talk to me at City Council and
Mr.
and
Sanchez,
they've
your
let
time
me
is
know
up.
how detrimental
Thank
it
you.
is.
Mr. Rubias, you are next.
These are self-reinforcing cycles, right? So poverty, food insecurity, lack of pharmacies, lack of access drives us to crime and homelessness and the things that plague our streets. And as we said, crime and homelessness and poverty, addiction, mental health are the foundation of the problems that we are facing today. So it is our responsibility as a city to figure out how we get food, whether it's through corporate partnerships or in the community, through community gardens or through incentives to make businesses move in. But first of all, we need to make our streets safe. We need to deal with the underlying issues. We need to treat folks who are living on the street with dignity and the care that they need to move off of them. And we need to do smart policing so that our streets feel safe and our stores are not taken advantage of. And then we need to bring these businesses back so that people will not fall back into this cycle and that we have access to grocery stores, we have access to pharmacies, we have access to the basic amenities that we need to survive.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you are next.
You know, describing the problem doesn't fix it. And that's what I do. I try and fix problems. And this is a good example of why I'm foreclosing on that CVS so that we can make it a community-run grocery store. It's also why I'm building a food market right in the heart of the International District on San Mateo next to the ACS headquarters so that we can have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. That's also why we're looking at all the regulations that actually prevent local farmers from selling to us each and every day, which is also cheaper and fresher. So it's about cutting the supermarket out. That's the challenge, and that's the executive order that I'm working on for next week. Now, I also want to share that some of these things, too, are national issues. I mean, retail, because of Amazon after COVID, is closing all over the country. And I mention that because we have to have local solutions to national issues. And those are the ideas I just shared with you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. White, you have the final answer here.
Yes. Last week we were at a forum, and a man stood up and said to us that the week prior, his mother, elderly mother, got ill, and he had to take her to the hospital. And they were discharged from the hospital at 2 o'clock in the morning. He said that he was discharged with a prescription that he had to get filled. He said they looked all over Albuquerque and they could not find a pharmacy that was open, and that they had to drive all the way to Rio Rancho to fill that prescription with his elderly mother. Those pharmacies and the Walmarts, the Walgreens, the CVS drugs, they're not closing because it's a national issue. They're closing because of theft, because of vandalism, because of homelessness. And that's a local problem. Mayor, it's one you created, and it's one that I will solve if I'm elected mayor. We have to clean up that corridor. It's so important to those families. It's important to quality of life, and it's important for Albuquerque.
Mayor, 30-second rebuttal.
You know, Darren's just living in like 2020. I mean, all of these stats and things that he quotes, they were true a couple of years ago. They're just not anymore. And I think that's the big challenge, because when you look at this issue, you know, there are deep challenges that we've had for many years, many of which actually you were a part of when you were community safety department, the officer shortage, the morale problem, the DOJ. These are all problems I've had to clean up. And now I'm doing the real work to actually do that. And that's what this election's about. It's about the future. It's not about 4 years ago.
Time is up.
You're quoting.
Mr. White, 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. Yeah, let's go back, Mayor Keller. Let's go back to 2014. You like to talk about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there were 30 murders. 2014, 30 murders in Albuquerque. 2024, 106. 3 times more.
That's
I would-
2022.
Mayor,
That is
please.
Go back and
Wait,
forth.
Mayor,
wrong year.
please. Let me
That's the wrong
finish.
year.
Thank you. That is not progress. That is a crisis.